Hey, hi everybody. Waiting. We are waiting to see first one on. Hey, hi Stephanie. So good to see you. Miran, hi. Hey, Miran, are you in LA right now? Or are you in Korea? Kumi, hello, hi. Atari from Lebanon again. Hi, good to see you. You're such a loyal follower of the show. I'm so glad to see you. Emily, Olivia, a few other people have joined. Yala Suzani. Hey, Eileen from San Francisco. Hello. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Well, for me anyway, it is noon in Hong Kong, and I'm coming to you live again with USkTalks. Another week, another fun time, and our first guest is almost ready for us. Awesome. I hope you guys have had a good week. It has been an interesting week for me as well. I mean, things are happening everywhere. Cities are opening up. I know that I've seen on Instagram, some of you are already out and starting to sketch again. Let's just see. Where are you guys from? Where are you coming in from? Hello, Noga. Yes. Let's see. Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve, Ollie. Yes, hi, from Jane from Seattle. Okay, very nice to see you. Thank you all for joining me. Today we have a really fun show, and I mean that quite literally. If you've seen the promos, you know that we're talking about play in urban sketching. Now, when I first started out, I remember when I went to my first few sketch walks and I understood the manifesto of urban sketchers. People were talking about telling me that, oh, you're drawing from direct observation, therefore you have to be very representational. So if there was no red in the drawing, I didn't put it there. I was trying to make sure that every line, everything that I drew was because it was literally there. But then when I started discovering the work of other urban sketchers, I found that, wow, there are lots of people who are really, really having fun with this. I mean, people were bending towers, and color didn't have to be so literal. So I then personally just started to see that, oh, you can actually have fun with this. And as I went on after, in the past 6 years or so of urban sketching, I'm sure you've all also discovered how urban sketching can be also fun. You can put yourself as the artist in the sketch. You can add emotion, you can play with composition, you can get dramatic with color. You can have a lot of fun with it. But for those of you who are maybe like trying to think like, how do I start? How do I start going about this and breaking out of that literal box? This is the show for you. We are going to have some fun today. We have two amazing guests. If you've seen the promos, you know that our first guest is Virginia Hein, all the way from LA, and we also have Eleanor Doughty from Seattle. Now, Virginia Hein comes from a background of toy design, so we're going to talk about that a little bit and how she approaches things. And she's also a veteran educator, so she knows all about how to bring out the fun and the play in you. And Eleanor is an illustrator, a fantastic artist from Seattle. I love one of her sources of inspiration. We're going to talk about that today. It's going to be fun, so hang on. Everybody get settled down. Have your cup of, I don't know, am I joining you for breakfast or lunch or dinner or just a snack? Have your cup ready, and let's get this show on the road. So, first up, coming all the way from LA, this is a very good friend of mine, Virginia. Midnight snack. Awesome. Before breakfast. Hi, Virginia. So good to
Hey,
see you.
hi. Can you hear me
Hi.
okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Oh,
Audience,
good.
can you hear Virginia okay? Let's just see. Give her a show. Oh, look, I didn't even have to ask. Look at all those hearts coming up to say hi to you. So good to see you, Virginia.
You too, Rob.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Okay, I'm sure everybody knows you, but we have to do it anyway. So please give us a little introduction. Tell us who you are.
Okay. Virginia Hine, born and raised in Los Angeles, and I live in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and I rather draw than do anything else. And yeah, you're right. I have a history as a toy designer, and just done a variety of things, but I love being an urban sketcher. That's, as you know, that's something that really changed my life, and I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, we are excited too. And I'm so happy to have you here because whenever I visit LA, I always hang out also with Urban Sketchers LA. And Virginia Hine is the one
Hmm.
who's introduced me to all these amazing places. People, you gotta go. If you're in LA, check out the local urban sketching chapter. They're so fun.
Yep.
They all know the best places to eat, best places to
Mhm.
draw. Can't wait to be back. I hope that works out soon.
I know.
So,
We miss you.
I miss you guys too. Okay, so tell us because it's fascinating. I don't know whether there. Do you know if there are other toys designers in urban sketching? Have you met
Yes,
any?
I do know
There are.
Yellow Cat. Um,
Oh, right.
okay, Yellow
Oh,
Cat, what's your actual name? She's there working with you or in a part of
yeah,
this. And there are
Christina.
probably more. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Christine,
Well,
exactly.
yeah.
And I know there's one in Sweden,
Oh,
and Katrina, I think, Karina, sorry, Karina. So I know there's probably more that I don't know about, but those are
wow.
some that I know of. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Before we jump to that, can you tell the audience whether you've worked on some toys that they would recognize?
Oh, goodness. Um, well, I probably did a few castles for Barbie over the years, and I've done a lot of character design and a lot of
Wow.
stuff for Mattel, Fisher Price, and, assorted other people.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is so cool. That is so cool. Okay, so the inevitably people are going to want to know that with your background in toy design and you do like amazing urban sketching as well, has the toy design thing affected or influenced your work at all, do you think?
I never realized, I always thought of them as very different. And then when I started teaching toy design and drawing, and
Mhm.
I was teaching workshops, I noticed I'm saying the same thing. So there, of course, there's common things. And I got into toy design because I love toys and I love play.
Mhm.
And I'm like you. It's like, there's a part of me that thinks, well, I'm going to draw what I'm seeing. That's important. And yet I really understand now that when I'm looking at a scene, when I'm trying to be true to the scene,
Mhm.
I want to bring everything to it, my intuition and a sense of just observing with the whole spirit. So I don't know if that makes sense, but and I think play is just that idea of experimenting and seeing. Suhita said it a few weeks ago. What would happen
Mhm.
if? And
Mm.
so just bringing play to my drawing, to my painting, is what keeps it fun and interesting for me. And I'm always trying something new, something a little different, trying different media and playing with color to
Uh-huh.
just kind of, and it's still being in the spirit of observing what I'm there witnessing, but I'm trying to do it with all my senses, not just
Oh,
maybe what I think I see.
okay. Well, that is fascinating, and I'm sure that the audience can't wait to dive into how you start experimenting. So maybe shall I show some of your work to show how you
Sure,
start experimenting and dive into that? Now, this is a
sure.
very familiar spot.
Oh, yes.
Tell people about
That's
it.
my beloved Olvera Street, oldest street in Los Angeles. And that's the row of shops. And this is how I have always typically started a drawing. I start with an ink drawing because that's the easiest way for me to quickly get the narrative down. And I love line. So that's usually how I start. But I'm also leaving a lot of openings and space for color. So that's why you see that, it composed the way it is.
Okay. And speaking of color, wow, look at that. I love how you use like a really fascinating color palette. It's not you don't throw everything into it, but you also look like you're very purposeful about your choices.
There's
Can
probably,
you?
but maybe all of four colors there.
Wow.
And
Okay.
for me, it's like, well, what was the overall feeling? It was a feeling of the light and shadow. And there's this kind of canopy of vines that goes over the top of the shops. It's that beautiful gold. And so I just thought, I'm going to punch that. And, you know, when my line is, and, you know, this is my typical way of doing it. If I get the line to where it's telling the story, I can be free with the color. So again, that's what I call the dance of line and color. And I've taught that, and I still like that approach, but I'm kind of switching it up a little bit right now, just as a way of playing.
Okay, that sounds a lot of fun. Okay, let's tell us a little bit about
So like everybody
how you
else,
approach
I
this.
was doing a lot of drawing from home, and lots and lots of the same views. So I thought, okay, what else can I do? Maybe just start, what's the color I'm feeling, not just the color that I perhaps am seeing, and just working with how much can I get out of one or two colors. So that's like a 3-color palette right there. And they're
Wow.
just little stories. You know, I kind of thought, well, I'm just going to start putting stories together on the page, which just, again, trying some different approaches to liven up seeing the same scene and yet seeing something fresh in it the more I do it.
I think this is a great idea. I mean, that would be a great challenge one day as well for people. I mean, you're giving us so many ideas for
Okay, well,
things
that
to
would have been great.
experiment and play with.
Yeah.
Yes, but there is more, and there's always more. That's a fun thing. So I'd like to dive into more of this color and emotion thing that you're talking about, and you've given us some excellent samples. So maybe you can explain and tell us how you bring all that into your work now. This part
Okay.
is
So
this is
that,
a new phase of experimentation,
yes.
right?
Hmm.
Okay, cool.
So
Okay.
this is where I just thought I want to just dive into color, and I want to start with color. I felt this need to just upend the way I've been working, and also just feeling a lot of emotion. We have a lot going on these days, and there was just this wanting to put the color down and put it down with just intuition and emotion. And so I'm using something called Brusho here, and also I'm using salt. So I'm using some, and there's some ink in some of these. So there's a certain, Brusho is something that explodes on the page. And so it's just, I got excited when I started doing this. I felt like a little kid, you know, mixing up something in my toy laboratory or something. And I just got so excited. So that's a real direction right now of now, what can I draw on top of that that feels like it relates? So I've got lots
Wow.
of them now. So I'm thinking, yes, somebody wrote sedimentary colors. So yes, I really like some earth colors in there too. So
Hmm.
some of them are really brilliant colors and some
Hmm.
of them are more earthy. And so I've started to do drawings on top and experimenting with how much am I going to draw and cover that up, and how much do I kind of hold back a little bit and let the emotion of the color tell more of the story.
That
So that's kind of
that's
my experiment right now.
that sounds a lot of fun. And somebody's just asking Brusho. Yes, correct. Olivia, it is spelled brush with an O. Brusho. That's right. Are you gonna hold that up?
And
Hold
you're
up.
probably
Ah,
looking at this
okay.
backward. I don't know.
Yeah. Instagram will
But you
flip
know,
the
I mean,
image. Yeah. But
this
that's
is this is
correct.
not this is not a commercial for Brusho, but you know, it is a powdered pigment that is sort of crystalline. There's lots of powdered pigments. You know, you could take lots of things and do some of that same kind of crazy random thing, and then see what can you do on top of it. So Brusho just happens to be something that I'm having a lot of fun with. There's the
Well,
palette right there. There's
yeah.
my palette. And you can see how kind of crazy and out of control it is. And also what I like about it is that each pigment has multiple colors in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this, so it's quite a revelation to me. And I'm just curious also. I mean, you talking about how you're experimenting with the brush show, and I love the fact that the word you use to say that it's explosive, because there's so much texture in there, and that is fascinating to me. So, excuse me, understanding your process then, do you play with the colors first, and then after that, like you've got this whole bunch of fascinating color backgrounds, and then you decide, oh, okay, when I go out and draw, I'll use this to draw that. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Ah.
And a lot of those I did out in the desert. So I was
Mhm.
doing landscape, and I've gone to Descanso Gardens, and they were sort of cool colors. And I have just a variety of different, some are more neutral, some are very brilliant. So they kind of suggest where they want to go to me. And then if I take a few different things with me to draw a scene, and right now I'm still pretty much working from home. I haven't gone out and doing a lot of sketching. So that is a ground that I did, and you can see that's more cool colors, blues and yellows and greens. And that's the
Mhm.
one I took to Descanso Gardens, where I did some social distance sketching. And there, yeah, so that is a combination of watercolor and gouache and some pencil. And in some cases, I'm letting that color just come through. And so some of it is what we call the local color. Some of it is really just the feeling that the place gave me. And that's what's fun,
Mm.
is, mixing something that's maybe what my eye is seeing with something that's coming from a more emotional place.
Okay. I think these two panels really illustrate things really clearly for you to see, for us to see how you start and then how you develop that into a sketch or a painting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such a cool idea. I love this idea of bringing emotion into it, because that really gives us a way as sketchers to put ourselves into the artwork.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of your storytelling, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay, so more examples, and these are beautiful. I love this idea of doing vignettes, and all the different colors and the mood. You can see how the mood just changes. Where
That's
was
it.
this?
My favorite thing to sketch is really the feeling and the mood of a place. So
Mhm.
that's, I think, what I'm able to get to quickly with this medium, which is I'm really loving. So the drawing goes on top, and then just maybe a little bit of paint and gouache to, just kind of make it recognizable, but still leave the surprise of
Hmm.
that color.
Yeah. Yes, I can see how that would work, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people experimenting. Okay, so how do you feel, like what do you think line brings in, and like the role of line and color? Could you define that a little bit more
Ah,
clearly for
favorite subject
us?
of mine. Line describes. It's great at telling a narrative. It describes contours, textures. It can be very expressive, but it's very different than color. I always feel like they're a partnership, and so in some drawings the line is more important, in some the color can take precedence. Color to me is all about emotion. It's all about mood, it's all about emotion, and I'm feeling that more now than I think I ever did. And I think,
Mm,
also that when we talk about seeing the color, like I want to be true to the color that I'm seeing.
yeah.
So often, if you really are sitting with a scene and looking at it, you suddenly may be surprised that, wow, that's not what I thought I was going to see. And I think when you just start to look at color and experience color in a different way, you start to see things that you might not have seen before, too. So that's part of
All
what's
right.
exciting and fun.
How do you balance then the fact that you like you've done these fascinating, like I love all these. I mean, I just looking at this one, for instance, all that texture in there, it is glorious. I can't think of another way to put it. I mean, it's so rich, right?
I got to admit, some of these I may leave alone because I like them the way they are. But, that's part of the experiment. Is
Yep.
just
Okay.
seeing how much can I, what what's going to be useful to do drawings on top of. So it's all,
Hmm.
that's part of the play right now. And the
Okay.
best kind of play is open-ended, and the
Hmm.
best kind of
Right.
experimenting, you're not predicting really what's going to happen. You sort of see, where can I go next? Where's this going
Yeah.
to take me? And it may go in some different directions. It could
Hmm.
go in very unexpected directions. But I'm
Okay.
not going to
Well,
give up drawing. So, and I
yeah, of course.
love this color
Yeah,
component. So,
I do too. Let's just take this for example. Okay, desert scene or something like that. I mean, just
yeah,
looking at this now, you got me thinking like, oh, that could be like a sunset sky, and then that would be like the
yeah.
desert foreground. So you could start working something out. But where do you like what kind of advice would you have for someone who's starting like this? And then they're trying to work in representational color as well, like the color that's actually in the scene. How would you balance that
Hmm.
the the emotional color and the color that's actually there?
Well, that one I did in the desert, and I think I was thinking about the desert when I did it. So I've
Mm.
done some others, let's see here. Like, well, here's one that, so this one, I'm seeing
Uh-huh.
jacaranda trees in my neighborhood. So I'm
Hmm.
thinking this looks a little dark here, but I thought, well, that's going to be perfect for me to draw the jacaranda trees on.
Hmm.
And some of the others I've done are, they're just some different kinds of colors that seem like they'll work. And just for someone who might be starting out, I mean, just start simple and go with just some colors that feel like I'm really feeling a particular color right now. I'm seeing this color a lot. This color makes me feel a certain way, and try just giving yourself some different grounds.
Hmm.
But maybe don't go too crazy with the texture just yet. But I think experiment. And I think just see where it takes you. I think is the best advice I can give anybody is be willing to experiment and don't worry about the outcome so much, and just see where it might take you.
Mm.
So
Okay,
that's a little open-ended, but yeah.
that's part of the fun. So using
Okay.
a cool ground like this, for instance, say if they want to add, for instance, maybe like your example was this, and then going to Descanso Gardens and coming up with that. Like this would be actually a good example. Like I just want to. I think if there are a lot of urban sketches who are just starting out, right? Okay, so looking
Mm-hmm.
at these that you created, and then this is what the final paintings that's how they turned out. Like, how do you decide when you're going from that, for instance, this
Mm-hmm.
piece with its
Mm-hmm.
lovely splashes of yellow and all that texture in there, and then when you start painting these, how do you make your color choices to
Well,
add in
as you
the
can see,
color that's in?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's part of my experiment is how
Oh,
much
let's go
do I
to.
really need to add. But you can see
Mm.
that I just left like a lot of the foreground. I
Mm-hmm.
left those cool blues. That yellow, I just thought I'm gonna barely touch that. But I'm gonna draw in the gazebo, but I'm gonna let that light come through. And so it's a dance again of how much am I going to do on top to draw the scene, but also just the fact that when I looked at that and I looked at the foliage behind the gazebo, it just fit. It was like, okay, that's the one. And then there's one next to it that's more dark. And I was in
Ah.
this area where the standing stones are is very
Mm.
shadowy. I admit
Yeah.
it's not underwater. It looks a little like it's underwater there, but that was to me more the feeling. It has a very kind of mystical feeling, these
No, I.
this spiral stones. And so that
Mhm.
that just I left that blue because it fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
fit.
I think this is so atmospheric. I mean, it's not literally representational, but it works so well. And I think what what's amazing also is it leaves stuff to the imagination.
Oh,
And
good. I think that's a really good thing when that's the case. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
it allows the mind to connect the dots, and it like makes you wonder. And yeah, I think one turning point for me when I was starting urban sketching is I realized that we don't have to use literal colors like that exact shade of red or green or whatever it is, because then why bother to paint? Just take a photo, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, doing this makes it so much more fascinating. So this it's you were saying that you use a combination of watercolor and gouache, is that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
A little bit of
Okay.
pencil.
Ah, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
pencil, but wow. They're just like ordinarily somebody painting there. I mean, when you're doing this, like if I were doing this, somebody would walk by like, "Those are stones. Why are you drawing that?" But look, you've made them into art.
Well, I did have a little boy once ask me, he looked at something I was doing and he looked at my drawing and he said, "Do you not have any green?" And I said, "Now come here, I want to show you." And I painted yellow and then I painted blue on top. And I said, "What do you see?" And he was like, "Oh, I see green." And I thought, yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is a great time to jump into what your favorite tools are as well. Can you show us like quickly like
Okay.
what your favorite tools are? We're already getting questions like, what do you
All right.
use?
So
What?
this big
Ah,
pake
uh-huh.
brush. I hope I'm
Okay.
saying that right. This is my favorite brush to use after I
Mhm.
sprinkle on that brusho. It's like, the fairy dust, like, and then it does
Ta-da.
do a little bit of manipulating. Got to
Wow.
get some of the brushwork going on in there. So that's my favorite brush for that. This is
Okay.
probably a 2-inch hockey brush.
Hmm.
And, when I'm painting, these are my favorite brushes for painting. Some of you
Hmm.
know the rosemary daggers. And I do tell people in this little flat, and I do tell people, I think it's good to use the biggest brush you can stand to use,
Hmm.
just especially if you're trying to let go of control a little bit and loosen up. So,
Okay.
um, ah, my rock salt from Costco.
Okay, that's a great question as well because you were saying that you use Brusho, which is what did you say? Pigment
It,
paint, right? Is
they
it
call it a crystal pigment, but I do
crystal
use
pigment?
yes,
Mhm.
but I do use other. I have a dirt collection, believe it or not, of places I've been with really beautiful dirt, fine
Uh-huh.
color dirt, and I use other powder pigments too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I have a regular color palette, but I have favorite colors, and
Hmm.
my favorite colors I like because I like to use a big brush.
Hmm.
You know, So I like to carry like a mint tin, and instead of
Mm.
putting 12 tiny colors, I use it for one big color.
Hmm.
So, so I have a bunch
Okay.
of those that are my favorite colors. So it's.
Okay.
Oh, so, yeah.
And sketchbook size.
Well,
I'm saying.
I'm actually using blocks quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
I'm using pads and blocks, but I will show you my favorite sketchbook. And
Uh-huh.
this is my
Nice.
Lalaran that I
Uh-huh.
brought
Ah.
in in Amsterdam.
Hmm.
So, and I do like it because I do like putting multiple stories on a page. I like working large, and
Okay.
just having. So that's probably my favorite. I have another favorite too, which is Stonehenge, and Stonehenge is a printmaking paper, but it's just I love it because it's just a
Wow.
nice all-purpose paper.
Echo
So
Park.
what's that? Yes, you
Echo
recognize
Park.
it. It's Echo Park. Yep. So I miss
That's
a lot of my favorite spots in Los Angeles, and looking
yeah.
forward to being able to get out and actually,
And
uh,
start
actually
working on.
in my cities. I see somebody asked about pens, and my favorite is the Fude pen. I
Hmm.
use a
Okay.
variety, but I love Fude pens, and I use pencils a lot too.
Hmm. Okay.
So I use a soft
Ah.
pencil, soft pencils. So
Uh-huh. Awesome. Well, we've
yeah.
gone through all that, and then I think now, just after showing this and that giant brush you use, I think people are ready for your challenge, Virginia.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Tell us what you want us to do.
Okay, so use a big brush to splash bold colors on a page, and then use that emotion to flavor the visual story that you draw on top.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I think these really illustrate this series of images that you gave also helped illustrate what you want us to do. So maybe just a quick explanation.
Yeah, so here you can see my little brushos, and I start with a spray bottle. I always like to have a spray bottle. So I spritz on some water and I just start shaking the color on it. And then I start to move it around a bit with the brush. And again, it doesn't have to be brusho. You could do this with paint. You can do it with ink. I often do this with ink too, because ink is so intense and saturated.
Mm-hmm.
If you want some texture, you can throw table salt on it. The rock salt is nice because it's nice, big, chunky bits, but it's just a coffee. I mean, just you can use a lot of different things to just kind of throw off the usual thing, a little off balance, just to kind of give it an interesting pin on top. Yes, that's how you keep it from going everywhere. Yeah,
Okay.
and somebody said liquid watercolor. Absolutely, liquid watercolor would work just fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many options, and then.
Mm-hmm. So you can see when it dries, it kind of softens a little bit. And this is me drawing the view from my front yard.
Mm-hmm.
You can see I used a pencil. So I'm noticing things in the pattern of the color. And I thought, oh, that echoes the way the bushes are coming down the hill. And the trees look so vibrant. So I'm going to leave the trees that brilliant green color. And I like the shadows. So it just seemed like I could fit that particular one to the scene that's really
Hmm.
right outside my front yard.
Okay. And let's show people what you did with that as well.
So this is one where I'm painting over it a lot. And you can see areas like the trees and all the foliage. Pretty much I left the foliage. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Whoa. I
You might have
no
accidentally
idea why.
flipped your. You've accidentally flipped your
Oh, is
camera.
that what I did? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Is there a way to bring it? Oh, there you are
okay,
again. Okay.
there we go. So the foliage I left alone. I pretty much left the foliage, just kind of went in and put in a little bit of darks, and then I used gouache to just give a layer over the sky and some other layers. So that's, again, this is part of the experiment for me, is how much am I going to allow that color to
Mm-hmm.
come through?
Mm-hmm.
How literal am I going to be? So
Mm-hmm.
this one, I'm painting over it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So in some others, maybe not so much. Like that one, I said, I just want to keep this one really simple. So with this one, all I did was just add the pencil and just a little bit of color on top. And then I'm working on top of that yellow ground. And it was early evening. And I start to see a lot of yellow in the sky
Mm-hmm.
in early evening. It's our
Okay.
smog, probably.
Well, it sounds fascinating. I mean, I can think of ways that I can do this digitally as well, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that lots of people are going to have a lot of fun with this challenge. So again, this is Virginia's challenge to work with explosive color. Put your emotion into it. Okay, and with that, wow, time has already flown. Yes, all
Okay.
the cool tools for
All
playing
right.
with that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I have to we have to move on with the show, but thank you so much for being on the show, Virginia. This was
My pleasure.
very inspiring. It's so inspiring. It's so
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I hope to see you in LA soon, and I hope we'll have you back on the
I
show to
hope
talk
so.
about something else. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so if you have just joined us, this is USkTalks. I'm Rob coming to you from Hong Kong. We just spoke to Virginia Hein in LA, and now we are going to bring on our next guest, Eleanor Doughty from Seattle, who is also this bright young sketcher whom I met a couple of years ago. She's very talented. If you haven't checked out her work, please do. We're waiting to connect. Hey, hi, Eleanor. How are you?
Hey, I'm
Hey,
good.
hey, hey, hey. You're in a very happening town right now. There's a lot happening in Seattle. How are you
Yeah.
doing? How are you doing?
Oh, right now I'm feeling kind of nervous, but in general I'm doing pretty good. Lots to do. I
Glad
might
to
go
hear
up
it.
to our new autonomous protest zone later.
Right, and do some sketching. Yeah,
Yeah, of
for
course.
anyone out there, if you have not seen some of the things that Eleanor has been capturing, oops. Well, okay, I'll
Hey,
find some
Seattle
way to.
people.
Yeah, this is a weird Instagram thing. Suddenly, some things work, some things don't work. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna remove that and let's get on with it. Okay, so first up, maybe you can tell our audience what you do, where you're from,
Oh,
and
okay.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm originally from Virginia on the East Coast. Now I live in Seattle on the West Coast in the top northwest corner. It's really beautiful and there's water everywhere. It's a beautiful part of the country. I'm a full-time freelance illustrator. I do a lot of different things, and I probably can't even list them all right now because I always forget like one or two.
Okay.
I'm working on a book right now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a comic
I'm
book.
just.
I do some murals. Here's a little
Oh yes,
slideshow.
that is amazing. I mean, is that a mural?
Yeah.
Oh
Technically,
wow.
no. It's a very big painting. I had to
Oh,
commission someone to build a panel that big. It's actually in three parts, so it could fit in a moving truck. It's installed in a
okay.
grocery store in
Wow.
Kirkland, Washington. So this is inspired by the landscape around that place.
Wow. Okay.
That's all
So
acrylic.
I'm just curious. And so, do you go and sketch that scene and then just like blow it up and make it that big?
For this one, I went to Kirkland and like spent some time exploring and doing sketches around there. So this one, I submitted a few different proposals for this project, and they chose one that wasn't directly based off of urban sketching, but I did submit some paintings that I made.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's definitely
Well,
inspired by drawing and
but
painting.
what you did on location, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love
Oh,
your murals as well. I mean, these are gigantic,
yeah, that
like
was a big
humongous.
boy. That was a very big mural.
Okay.
Um, that is in my hometown of Vienna, Virginia, and
Hmm.
I happened to see a call for this shopping center that needed a mural on the back. So I hemmed and hawed about submitting something, and I eventually submitted a design with all the historic buildings in town and some of the nearby landmarks, like this skyline thing here.
Hmm.
So I did this while I was in Seattle, so I couldn't do urban sketching, but it's all
Okay.
like inspired by what I do on location for sure.
I love how you translate that into your work. And then as an illustrator, I can imagine that drawing on location makes a difference to how you represent things as well when you draw stuff and you illustrate work for commissions.
Yeah, it's really like my illustration practice is always increasingly more
Mhm.
centered around urban sketching, which is great. Like as people start to know me from my work, because urban sketching is my fave.
Brilliant.
So it's great.
I so resonate with that. And because that tile didn't work just now,
Hmm.
here, please, people, take a screenshot if you want. This is Eleanor's Instagram handle, Herb Coil. Herb Coil. Once you hear it, if you're like me, you're not gonna forget that. And that was Virginia's. So if you are wanting to take part in any of the challenges today, take a screenshot and I'll show that again at the end of the show. Okay, so you do such cool stuff. I love the fact that your work is so alive with line and color. You have this
Mm.
looseness, you have this, you take a scene and you put so much pizzazz into it that it,
That's great.
you can't help but like, whoa, look at that. That is so cool. So I've just heard that part of your inspiration is film
Mm-hmm.
and animation. Yeah. So can you tell us a bit more about that, please? You send us some panels. Take us through
Yeah.
why this fascinates you and how this influences your work, please.
Yeah. So my very first beginning of drawing was inspired by cartoons. I would like draw cartoon characters for my friends, and they're like, "Well, you're so good at drawing this Digimon," and I just didn't stop drawing. So it's always been part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the probably some of the best artists in the world work on these animated films, so you can just see like the skill that goes into them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for urban sketchers, we're looking. I think the scenery is very exciting and how people choose to show things dimensionally. They're also all about centering the action of characters, which is something we
Mm-hmm.
do as well with observing strange people walking around the street, wanting to include them in our work. So these two are from this film called Song of the Sea, which is an Irish film. The studio is called Cartoon Saloon, and it's on Netflix right now, at least in America. I just can't get enough of like the stylization, making these trees just into circles halfway through the film. And they just have these amazing details and textures that are so whimsical.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's a
Oh, you did?
fantastic film. I
Yeah.
love how they stylized it. That's true. It was like blew my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got some other samples as well
Mm-hmm.
from other films. Can you tell us about which those are?
Yeah.
And
This one is from a animated series from a Japanese studio called Science Saru, directed by Masaaki Yuasa. This has really great color themes in the series that recur through, like when there's themes like of the ping pong club, they have it's like all in purple. And I just love how they showed the lights of the city in that screenshot
yes,
right there. It's like
yes,
so moody. I really feel like
yeah,
this gloomy night sitting out by yourself. We've all been there.
yeah. We've all been there. And but I love the fact that you're taking inspiration for this, and especially for this episode, because we're talking about play and how we can use stuff that we actually watch. I mean, I think lots of us
Mm-hmm.
watch films and we watch TV, but not very many of us are thinking like, how can these influence our work? So that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us, excuse me,
Some
uh,
a beverage.
what are the names of those films again? Can you tell us that? Because I think a few people have been asking again. Song of the
Yes,
Sea. Yes,
Song of the
thank you,
Sea,
Benny. Song of the Sea.
and the second one is called Ping Pong, the animation. It's
Ping
a
pong. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
Okay.
really really good. It's I think probably my favorite anime, and
Ping pong. Okay.
yeah. Later, I'm gonna post a list of inspiring films on my Instagram story. If you
Perfect.
guys want to circle back, I'll just list it out.
Yes. Yes, perfect. And just grab a screenshot of that if you have not already. Find Eleanor at Herb Coil and check out her stuff and that list of films. So no more question about films, please. We're just gonna flick through some of
Ping
the cool
pong.
stuff that she's got to show
Oh my
us.
gosh, this is from um,
Spider-Man, was it?
Spider Verse.
Ah,
What was it?
yes. That was so cool.
Yeah, that film is so good. I can't believe I liked a superhero movie this much, but it is amazing. It doesn't look like anything else. And I especially love this scene with like the little pop of red in there, and it
Yeah.
also it's very moody. The silhouettes of the gravestones I think are really cool, and how the characters like cut out by having that big dark shape of the church behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've watched
Well,
that movie a lot. Also on
see, just
Netflix.
also on that, yeah, I've seen that also, and I think listeners tune in because what Eleanor was just saying is gold. Like she's telling you, like you watch films all the time. If you're a parent, you got kids, you might be watching animation, but how she's looking, how she's analyzing this scene. That's the stuff you can apply to urban sketching. Okay, let's go to the next one because there's always
Oh
more
yeah,
goodies.
this is also a Song of the Sea.
Mhm.
It
Oh,
might
look at
be,
this! Look at the way they did the
yeah,
rocks.
the
That is,
rocks. It's just so smart. Like the little lines and textures, like that probably isn't actually there, but it just adds like this fun sense of texture and line. So you can like
you know.
take a little bit of texture you see on a rock and just kind of play with it, make it into a pattern.
Mhm.
Because what really matters is that it looks good. Yeah, more
Yeah,
than anything.
and I guess it's also a process of simplification because like
Hmm.
drawing rocks, I remember used to.
Oh,
I mean,
so hard.
sometimes yes, sometimes it's just still like I don't know. It becomes a mess of lines, but
Hmm.
that's so cleanly done.
Yeah, and they
And
still look like rocks. You can tell
mm,
they're rocks. They look interesting. They all like look how the kid on the boat is perfectly centered in that rock, like really drawing attention
right,
to
and
it.
those arcs as well, just like
Yeah.
making the hero so clever, so
Hmm.
clever. And the next time we watch films, I think you're gonna change how the way urban sketchers watch movies
Mm,
and animated film.
that
Okay.
would be my dream. This is also from Ping Pong. I really liked the open sense of space and how you can really get a sense of a specific setting in this town in Japan. Um, I think it's just really nice how they do all the shapes in this show. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's that balance of like there is dimensionality
Yeah, yeah.
and
There's so
there
much
is
detail.
yes, but you still like it's so clear. It's not a lot of stuff that
Hmm.
jumps into your eye. And I think you got one more to show us.
Yeah, this is from the Tatami Galaxy, which is by the same studio that made Ping Pong, the animation. And this show is really hard to watch if you don't understand Japanese because the dialogue is so fast. So sometimes I just turn off the subtitles and just look at things.
Oh,
I think they use color in a really cool way. I don't know if you can see, but they stylize the dappled foliage in the shadows there, which is like consistent throughout
oh
the
yeah.
film and just looks really cool. And if you go down, it's in the shadows of all these people at this outdoor
Oh
book
wow.
fair. It's just so
Wow.
subtle, but it's really softens things and it just looks really cool. This is also just a screenshot.
Mhm.
Like this is just a one frame of this really beautiful show.
Which gives us an idea how much we can actually learn from just one film, one animated film.
One
So
episode.
one episode. So remember to check out Herb Coil, Eleanor's IG handle, Herb Coil, for that list of films and for ideas
Coming
on what to
soon.
capture. Coming soon. Yes, this week.
Not right now.
Okay. So you've given us a whole bunch of ideas on how watching films, that like little things that we can start to pick out and apply to our work. Can you go into a little bit more uh, detail about how you would apply that? For instance, did you use that in some of your urban sketching? This is your work, and
Hmm.
this is fabulous. I mean, that the play of light, but at the same time, the simplicity of the color palette and the shapes of the buildings. Tell us how you
Oh
apply
yeah.
these principles to your work, please. I'm sure everybody wants to know, like, oh yeah, I can watch a film, but then wonder how do I apply them when I draw?
Yeah. Well, this is from Genoa this summer in Italy before the symposium. Um, it was in this really cool little piazza near where I was staying, and it was like just really hot. So I was sheltering in the shade. I wanted to show that the light was just blasting down. So you leave a lot of white when you want to do that, and also use warm colors like the red, warm, um, like scarlet, I think, and the ochre, also very Italian. Um, and in my work, I always try to include something that's alive or moving. So in this case, it was this person walking in the big white area.
Mm,
Because I feel like if you don't have a live subject. Like maybe it's like some birds. Usually I think it's best if it's people. It just feels kind of dead to me. So you also want to leave a space for this character in the story you're creating. That's another thing. If you have a person doing something, it becomes a story automatically,
Yeah,
which is, I think, what we're trying to do.
I totally agree with you, and I love how people just bring a particular space to life, even if it's a tiny one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the story. Um, Obviously, like you've been talking about how it sounds like stylization and simplification is a huge part of applying this. Can you give us
Hmm.
an idea how you did that with just this particular section of your sketch, please?
Oh, yeah. This is, I guess it's pretty stylized. It's simplified because I was
Hmm.
drawing it pretty fast. I think I had somewhere to be. It was also so hot. So, I mean, I'm pretty fast at drawing. So my hand is just kind of flying over the page. I'm not being too careful with anything. So I think keeping things very crisp and keeping your corners very sharp helps make things seem purposeful and dimensional, and just keeping the perspective consistent. I don't like measure out perspective lines or anything like that personally. I think I think that contributes to the feeling of being really wonky. What, I don't
Oh,
remember what word you said.
wonky, funky. You said funky, and
I'm
wait,
saying both.
funky line? Was it funky lines? I don't know whether it's funky or wonky. I love it because there's so much character in here. I mean, there've been lots of hearts and comments from the audience who absolutely love this piece. Let's take a look at something else that you've done, and yeah, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more. Tell us a story and a little bit about your process, please.
Yeah, this one was also in Genoa. A few days before I drew that last one, I was really on fire at that point, I think. Um, and
From the heat?
on
From the
fire,
heat
yeah.
or
Just on a roll. And also,
oh
Genoa is
wow.
so, like, everything is sketchable and beautiful there. So this is in the old part of the town. It's like medieval kind of oldness. The streets are like this wide. So there's this really beautiful, just like tiny little sliver of sky you can see everywhere. So the light that gets through in the sun is like just very crisp.
Sorry.
Come back. Yeah. So
Here
you
we
see
go. Here
these
we go.
like patches of sunlight that are just, they just show where the light is so clearly. I use a lot of mixed media for this one, and wanted to be sure to leave where the sun was hitting white, so it really feels like the brightness of the paper. So I was using watercolor and some water soluble marker and pencil, and what else? Yeah, I was
Okay.
really into these water soluble markers that were in a sale bucket at some random art store. So you put a little water on them and they get soft.
All right.
Kind of, then they do a little. They're kind of unpredictable, but I just
Yeah.
love the contrast of the line with the blurry blobs. It's
That
very
little
fun.
little wash of color that bleeds out. I
Hmm.
also love like your line quality because it's so loose and it adds so much character to the building as well.
Mm.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
get bored with drawing all those windows, so I just want it to be over.
And embrace the well. Yes, I can see what you mean. Like in this particular one as well, with all the like I think you particularly bring out the character in buildings really nicely,
Hmm.
and I love your color choices. How do you decide on your color palette?
Oh, I like this question. Well, this is in San Francisco, where the light is just so much more golden than anywhere else I've been. So I always try to capture that when I go there, and I never quite get it, but I'm working on it. So the color scheme for this, since I was traveling, I don't bring that many tools. It's not like my whole studio is coming with me, so I'm stuck with the things that I have. So I have to make design choices to do what I need. So I think I probably use that purple because it's contrasting with the yellow, and also it's really dark. So like finding how to bring the windows out as a punch. And you notice there's also another little person walking down the sidewalk on the other side. Yeah, so they're like
Yes.
really stand out. Honestly, it's
And
usually
you framed him so nicely
yeah,
too.
yeah. So you have to
And
give your people a little breathing room, like a halo. Yeah, but everywhere in San Francisco is also like totally sketchable.
that's true. I
I
mean,
love
the
it.
architecture is fascinating, and the people are also like, I mean,
Hmm.
you could just draw people and have a lot of fun with it. Well,
Truly.
that is so cool. Okay, yeah, lots of people are saying like, come to Asia, come check
Oh
it out.
yeah. Oh,
She's been to
I
Asia.
enjoy that place.
Yeah, come back, come back, come back.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm very excited to do that.
okay. Let's take a
Let's
look
go to
at
Asia.
this. Yes, let's go to Asia. Well,
Yeah.
there would be a symposium here in Hong Kong, but not this time.
Oh,
Hopefully it'll come
can't
back.
wait.
Okay, tell us
Uh,
about.
this is in Japan. I traveled there in 2018 by myself, and at this point, I rented a bicycle and biked down this famous bike route called the Shimanami Kaido. And there's all these bridges connecting these islands that you bike across. It's really great. So I stopped for a snack along the river and watched these two lovebirds sitting on the pier up there. And I wanted to draw all the bridges. I think there was 5 or 6 that you go across, and they're all different and like just enormous. And this like
Yeah,
typical little Japanese town, just showing like the difference in scale, getting all those little tiny wires. I
yeah.
never use, this is a rare time I use a straight edge because I think you have to for
Yeah, it'd
that.
be hard to get those nicely. And that, yeah, it really gives it tension. But the contrast, like, it's very hard. I found that in sketching, it's very hard to use wonky lines and,
Hmm.
funky lines and then have straight lines and then make it work. So this, I think, is a perfect funk and the funk of the buildings of the little town. But
Yeah.
the lines here like are it really gives you that tension of, and also
Mm.
it's like the coldness of concrete and giant in man-made things, but contrasted with the little town here. It's
Hmm.
what I find fascinating is that each of your sketches look like they could come from an animated film, and I think
Oh, that's
we
so
would all
nice.
want to watch that.
I want
Is
to
it
make
something that you
it.
want to do? That you
I
want
would
to Would you
totally
like to
do
do?
it. I just don't have like a portfolio or software experience. It's like a
Okay.
dream I have. But you really have to move to LA if you're American and you want to do it. So
Well,
I
I
don't know if
suppose
I'm
so.
ready for that.
Okay. Well, perhaps sometime down the line. So if there are any film directors out there, anybody in the movie business want to make an animated film, please check
Yeah.
Eleanor out and think about it. I mean, those who make such fascinating, backgrounds and just like this, this is like one of those films that you were talking about, where the story is there
Yeah.
against this dramatic setting. Fantastic. Okay, so before we jump into the challenge, let's see some of the tools that you use, please.
Okay. I love, I have some stuff on my desk and I realize they're all square tipped tools. So my number one favorite is the 1.5 millimeter parallel pen.
Mhm.
It's a square tip. It's for
Oh,
calligraphy. You can refill it with any ink. I put a little tape roll on the back so you can cap your pen.
mhm.
Yeah. They come in a whole bunch of sizes. This one is a little wider, and I rounded the corner of it. I don't know if you can see that. Rounded the corner off so you can get another kind of line in there, so it's not just fat, skinny.
So you're actually okay with modifying your pens?
Yeah.
You must have some experience doing that, because I would be like, oh, okay. Am I gonna mess with the pen?
Scary. It's like, whoa, is it gonna be ruined?
Okay.
It's kind of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still, when I figure it out, I'll write a tutorial for it.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
On that note, I'm also using these. This is like one of my go-to tools. Is this dowel? It's a dowel that we sharpened in the studio with some chisels and drilled a little hole in it. So it's basically like a split nib.
Okay.
Something about it is just so fun to draw with. You can get, when you draw with the flat side, because it's wood, it soaks up ink. It kind of looks like charcoal. The way it is.
So you dip it in ink, and that little split bit sucks up the ink, right? And, okay, fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. I also really love these Zig calligraphy markers. They have 2 tips. They come in really nice colors. They're totally waterproof, which is important to me.
Okay. Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Chisel tips. Okay.
Yeah, I just love chisel tips. I like having the opportunity to like do big shapes in the lines. They're also give you like a very alive, inconsistent line, which I think makes the drawings interesting.
Brings the funk.
Bring the funk.
Sketchbook size. Can you show us what size you typically work in?
It really varies. I'll show you my current book right now. I'm also I don't really have a strong allegiance to any sketchbooks, so sometimes I use like random ones. This is one that I made myself. It has very textured paper in it. So I like this size because it's like nice and portable, but since I'm not really going that many places lately, I'm looking forward to switching to a larger book.
Okay. Well, so exciting, the stuff that you've shown us today and you've talked about. So I think it's time to talk about challenge. Let's dive into it. Tell us what you want us to do.
Yeah. So if you think about these screenshots we just looked at, they're definitely far from realistic, like camera pictures of scenes and locations. So I would like everyone to think about breaking down objects into simple shapes. Like if you think about those trees we saw and the rocks in the Song of the Sea screenshots, they're just ovals.
Okay, let's pull up let's look at the trees again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like not being so beholden to the complexity of life around us, but looking at silhouettes and simple shapes. Like I did this drawing in Florida. I'm really into the plants I saw there. So this one I also did with the stick pens, just as an example of round things with a stem in it. That's all you need to do to show it's a plant. They were kind of like round like that, so I wanted to show the variety of plants in that little area, but without spending 6 hours drawing them. I don't have all day.
Okay, that sounds like a fascinating challenge, and it's perfect for urban sketching, especially when you want to work quickly. Can you give us an idea, like in a typical scene, what sort of things are ripe for stylization? Like which would you like immediately, how do you break it down? Say something like that, for instance. How do you start stylizing?
I think things that no one, like trees, are probably the number one thing I like to stylize because they're so complicated, but they're
Mm-hmm.
also everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of opportunities to do something fun with them,
Mm-hmm.
and just make them look energetic and interesting. Like looking at their overall shape and
Okay.
channeling
So
aspects
jumping
of
back,
that.
yeah, jumping back to trees as you talk about
Yeah.
that. Okay. And what about, well, actually, I just realized you've done
Yeah.
a
This is
great
even
job.
more simplified. This is more what I would love to see people do is just breaking things into their most simple shapes. Like thinking about the silhouette. The silhouette is what is most clear when you're trying to show something. You have to think about the silhouette before anything else about it. And
Okay.
also, there's a lot of room to have really charming and cute and silly little things. Like I think that car I drew looks kind of like cartoonish.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that.
But like, oh, it's a car. That's all you need to know. It's a car.
Yeah, yeah, and that manatee sign. That's so cute. It's the details, people.
It
Okay.
is.
Okay, so basically, take a scene, stylize it. Eleanor's given us a lot of ideas on how to stylize, break it down into silhouettes and shapes. And I'm also excited to see how people take on this challenge.
Oh my God, me too. I can't wait.
Fabulous, fabulous. So perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show. You've provided plenty of inspiration, lots of stuff to play with.
That's great.
I think everybody's going to look at films differently now. So, yes, grab the inspiration.
I did
Thank you,
it.
Eleanor. We
Oh,
have
thanks.
just run a
Cheers.
little bit over an hour. Yes, cheers. Okay. See you again, Eleanor. I'll sketch with you again soon, and
Yeah,
we'll catch you next time.
I hope
Okay?
so.
Yeah.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks.
Bye, 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 bye. Okay. Wasn't that cool? Did you guys have fun? I hope that you found plenty of inspiration for the show. And don't forget, this is the IG handle of our guests today. So if you're going to take part in all those challenges, remember to use the hashtags USkTalks challenge, tag our guests, tag Virginia, tag Eleanor, tag. So it's Virginia Hine and at Virginia Hein, at Herb Coil on Instagram. Go check out their stuff. I mean, the way that every sketcher approaches things, it's so fun and fascinating. There's so much for us to learn from that. I'm also going to dive in. I mean, these particular topics are like, oh, it's exciting to dive into, right? I'm sure you're all looking forward to playing with that. So this, I hope you had a good time. Replays on IGTV and YouTube. I'm sure you already know that by now. I'm Rob. This is USkTalks. We have run over an hour, so I need to wrap this up. I hope you guys had a really good time. I hope you have a fabulous week ahead of you. Have fun with the challenges.